Hey, what's up, YouTube? All right, we are back. This is my 4th day in a row doing live streams. Has anyone in the history of the internet live streamed 4 days in a row?
Yes.
They have. Okay, I got an answer really quick. Yes, people have done it many, many times before, and probably for many more days than 4. Nonetheless, here I am. We are 1 day, basically 24 hours out of the final debate. So we'll obviously talk a lot about that. I'm happy to talk about Project Veritas. We can talk about WikiLeaks, all kinds of stuff. There's obviously a lot going on. We still have about 20 days for this election, and people are going completely insane. Like, it's just, if you think that we've hit bottom, we're not even close. Just think how nutty this thing is going to get before it's over. I think both of these guys, this guy and this gal, Hillary and Trump, I think they have so much more on each other. And because it's such a ratings machine right now, it's just going to get worse and worse. And I will say this, I don't think it's over yet. I really don't think it's over yet. I think anything can happen. So I'm happy to share my thoughts on what happened last night. We'll do an Ask Me Anything. You guys can ask me any question. It can be personal or private or about politics or about Nintendo or basketball or anything else. And the reason that we're going live all week, in case you don't know already, is that we are building a home studio. It's our final step towards true independence, where we will have no boss, we will have no rental stuff, we will own and distribute and control all our content ourselves. Starting next week, just to prove to you guys how hard we're working, we're doubling our content, even though we're working incredibly hard already. But we're doubling our content starting next week. Will be two interviews a week. Once we have our live studio, which we have to build out now, and that's what we're hoping you guys will help us out with. Once we do that, we're hoping to do eventually, like a live weekly news segment. We'll live stream from the studio more. We'll be able to not only do more interviews, but we'll be able to do longer interviews. I was renting before at the previous studio that I was at, which was great. But sometimes we realized it wasn't even financially sensible to do more interviews because it cost more to actually rent the studio than we could profit from the video. So the more work I did, the less money we made, which obviously doesn't make any sense. So it's the true last piece to us being fully free, and Amira and David work incredibly hard for me. We've got a great little production company here, and we've had so many people offer to work for us and work for free for us, but we want to pay people. So we're putting all the pieces together to have a really awesome company here, and hopefully talk about issues that you think are important, classical liberal values, and talk to people that are progressives and that are conservatives and everything in between, and things that are even more fringe than certainly either of those. So that's what we're doing. So I'm giving live shout outs to anybody that donates on rubinreport.com/donate, where the PayPal link is and the Patreon link, and patreon.com/rubinreport. And we just opened up a couple $100 slots if you want to join us on the Google Hangouts, where we do these mini video chats with people from all over the world. It's really cool and fun, and you get mugs and t-shirts and all kinds of other stuff on there. All right, that's enough housekeeping for now. Now I'll take some questions, and it looks like the chat was quite lively before I even got in here, according to my team over here. So Amira is going to fire off some questions, and yeah, we can do politics, whatever you guys want to do. And I'm a live, breathing human being, far more human and animated than anything you'll see on cable TV tonight. Amira.
Thoughts on CA Prop 60, which is condoms and porn? Yes is you are required, or other protective measures, and no is no protective measures.
So Prop 60 in California, which a lot of people have been talking about, basically forcing porn companies to have their performers use condoms.
And health checkups. And
health checkups. So as far as the health checkup part of it, I'm basically okay with that. I think that would just be them doing their due diligence and responsibility. As far as forcing them to wear condoms, I mean, you guys know my feelings on generally the government forcing private companies and private people to do things. So if we can trust, hopefully, that these companies want to keep their employees healthy and that people have access to the right kind of health care and information so that they don't do risky things and things that are going to get them in trouble one way or another, I would be against forcing a company to do that, because truly, at the end of the day, what will happen if people want porn without condoms? Well, then if you say, all right, in California, that's the only way you can shoot it with condoms. Well, guess what? All the pornographers here are going to go to Vegas, so they'll go to something right outside California. And this is one of the issues. If you saw my interview with Randy Barnett, who's a constitutional law professor, we weren't talking about porn and condoms specifically, but one of the things that he really laid out that I think was really brilliant about why states' rights are important is he talked about the foot vote. That one of the reasons you don't want the federal government to control everything is that you ultimately, if the feds control everything, you have very little control of your life, because your only way to say, I don't like this system, is actually to leave the country. But if you have states' rights and you allow the states to say, we're going to tax differently, we're going to have this different law, in this state you can have legal marijuana, in this state you can you don't have to use condoms in porn, or whatever it is. What you do is you allow people to vote with their feet, foot vote, so that you can take your money, your work, your economic benefits, and you can take it to another state that holds more of your beliefs. And if that state starts doing well economically, maybe then you force some of those other states to change. That's how you, I think, create real change, using the individual, using the economy properly, without having the government slam down edicts on everybody. So yes, I always say the phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. The intentions are good for people that want this Proposition 60 to go through. They don't want people to get STDs. That's an admirable quality. But the idea that the government should force it down everyone's throats, no pun intended, when people just go to another state is kind of silly and short-sighted, I think. Remember, we're giving live shout-outs the entire time, so I just want to quick thank Kyle, who just jumped in on Patreon, and Jesse, who just jumped in on PayPal. Thank you, guys. Amira.
What's your favorite kind of cheese?
What's my favorite kind of cheese? I did just have a cheddar cheese cheese stick, but cheddar is not my favorite cheese. I love a good blue cheese. I love a good Swiss cheese, but I think my favorite cheese of all time, and I've been really big on it lately, I do love feta. I do love the feta cheese. You give me like a goat's milk or a sheep's milk feta, which is a little softer than what people think of as the regular feta. I've got a good one from, maybe it's from Whole Foods in there. There's only a couple of things. I can't really go to Whole Foods all the time because they call it whole paycheck foods. Everything's absurdly expensive. They do have a good sheep's milk feta. Now I come off as some sort of 1% or elitist. That is terrible. Don't ask me any more questions like that. What else
Trump talking about abortion and reversing Roe versus Wade.
So Trump talked last night that he is pro-life, is what he said, and that he said he would appoint justices. And this next president may get to appoint 4 justices because of the age of some of the justices right now. So he said he would appoint pro-life justices. Now, first off, that statement in and of itself is not really how it works. You're supposed to appoint judges based on how they, not on their political beliefs, but how they view the Constitution. Now, I know you can basically discern how someone views it, and then you can figure out what they think. But anyway, what he was saying was, I would have right-to-life justices, which ultimately would reverse Roe v. Wade, which would kick it back to the states. So so just to clean up a little bit of what he said, he never said that he would have abortion be federally illegal. That's not what reversing Roe v. Wade would do. Reversing Roe v. Wade would kick it back to the states. Roe v. Wade says it's a woman's right at a federal level, meaning the entire country. Now, I would not be for reversing Roe v. Wade. I am pro-choice. I do not like abortion. As I said in a tweet last night, I don't think most women want to have abortions. And if you're going to take away the right to have an abortion, what you're going to do is force a lot of women to have illegal abortions. People are still going to do it. And by the way, all of these Republicans and people on the right who are against abortion, guess what? If their children most likely were raped or something happened, they'd still find a way to have an abortion. So you're going to create a situation where you're going to have poorer people doing illegal things, and that's not good. At the same time, I do believe that at some point that that entity that is in the woman at some point is a human being. Maybe not at inception when it's just the cosmic stew, so to speak, but at a few months in, what do you do? What do you do if a woman doesn't want to have that pregnancy? If you offer her no help, then she's going to find a way to have an abortion anyway. So this is somewhere where we have to, I think for people that are pro-life, well, if you don't want someone to have an abortion, then maybe you have to figure out ways to help them, either more easy ways to adopt or something. This is really where most decent people can come together. Everyone knows this is a very polarizing topic. And as I said last night, people on the right make it sound like people on the left hate babies, and people on the left make it sound like people on the right hate women. Neither one of those things are true. So let's kind of figure out how to have an honest discussion about it. I personally would not be for reversing Roe v. Wade, but just to be very clear, reversing Roe v. Wade does not make abortion illegal. It just puts it back in the state's hands. Now, and you could be completely against that, and that would be fine.
George from Patreon says, "What Decepticons are Hillary and Trump?"
George says, what Decepticons are Hillary and Trump? By the way, we're giving primo comment priority to people that are on Patreon. So even if you just donate $1 on Patreon, you'll get primo placement for David and Amira to read me questions. So what Decepticons are Hillary and Trump? Well, Trump, let me think. Who's like really gaudy and over the top and ridiculous? Well, Trump, I think, would have to be Starscream. If you remember the cartoons, Starscream really always wanted more and more power. He was a bit of an egomaniac. He was always sort of into like having an insurrection against Megatron, really fighting the system. So I would say Trump is Starscream. Hillary, look, Hillary's the power structure. She's running the show. So she's probably Megatron. Yeah, I'd have to go with that. All right, a couple quick thank yous. Want to thank Homeless Help on Patreon. Thank you guys. And Chris, who just jumped up on Patreon, who increased his pledge. So thank you guys. I'm giving shout outs to anyone who donates on either PayPal or Patreon. RubinReport.com/donate. Amira.
You can talk about that exclusive stream now.
Oh, and we've got an exclusive Patreon only stream after, which is one of the rewards that you can get on Patreon, where it's just, sometimes it's a dozen people in there, depending on what time of day we do it. Sometimes it's a couple hundred people on there, but it's very intimate, and I get to chat with you guys and share a little more personal stuff than I can when it's out to the full masses. All right, what do we got?
And No Good from Patreon says, have you reached out to Martin Scully? And what are your thoughts?
No Good asks on Patreon, have I reached out to Martin Scully? I have reached out to him. He follows me on Twitter. I've DM'd him a few times. He hasn't got back to me, but I feel like it'll happen. If you're hearing squeaking, Emma's getting a little jealous that I'm talking to you guys, so she's squeaking Yoda over there. But I would be happy to have him on. You know, he's obviously an extremely controversial figure. For those of you who don't know him, he's the guy that got in a lot of trouble when he increased the price of, I think it was cancer drugs and
HIV.
It was HIV medicine? Okay, so yeah, and subsequently has staked out a lot of very unpopular positions.
He says he created some cancer drugs.
And he's created some cancer drugs, possibly. All right, so yes, I've reached out to him, and I'll continue to reach out to him. And as I said, he follows me, so he's aware of who I am. So hopefully we can make that happen.
What's your favorite Mel Brooks movie?
What's my favorite Mel Brooks movie? It's got to be Spaceballs. Spaceballs is pretty spectacular. I watched it again about 6 months ago, and it's pretty great. Now, of course, you guys know how I feel about Star Wars, so obviously that's an easy one for me. But there's so much goodness in Spaceballs. Yeah, I would say Spaceballs. Blazing Saddles is phenomenal. The best fart scene ever in a movie. Young Frankenstein is great. I didn't love the Producer's movie. I thought it was actually pretty shitty. The play is good. What else did Brooks do? Then he did a couple bad ones towards the end of his sort of movie making career. But I still love the guy. I saw him once in New York City, and I should have said hi.
But Dave, your topics are entirely U.S. specific. Will you ever have any experts from other parts of the world?
My topics are entirely U.S. specific. I mean, I've had Tino Sanandaji. We did a whole episode on Sweden. I had 2 Australians on in the last 2-3 weeks. I had Rita Panahian, who's a writer for the Australian Sun, and I had NBA star Andrew Bogut. I've had the leader of the Assyrian army on. I've had Douglas Murray, where we talked mostly about the UK. I've had Bayan Sami Abdul Rahman, who's the U.S. representative of the Kurdish regional government. Certainly I can do more. And that's one of the things that I would love to do. I want to do more. I had Tariq Fatah, and we talked about India and Pakistan almost the entire time, and also Balochistan, which nobody talks about. So I would love to do more of that kind of stuff, and that's one of the things we'll do as we expand the show. This really, these few months since we've gone independent is just the beginning. Now is where we're really going to kick it up to high gear, and I will literally have a studio in my house and be able to just tape more and more content. By the way, the more content that we tape, the more revenue that we can generate, and the more revenue we generate, the more people we can hire, and the more people we can hire, the more content we can create. So it's a nice little engine that you guys are helping us out with by going to RubinReport.com/donate or Patreon.com/RubinReport. All right, let's go on. By the way, we think right now, so it looks like there's about 470 people in the stream right now. YouTube has confirmed with us. I have emails from YouTube saying there is a bug on our channel causing people to be unsubscribed. And we know that the feed is not going out to people. So for any of you that are in here right now, for some reason you're on there, but make sure that you click that little bell so that you get all of our notifications. But also you can share this. It's becoming more and more important. They're telling me it's a bug. I don't like going down the conspiracy routes thinking that they're doing something for political reasons or whatever, even though I do suspect that Twitter is starting to shadow ban a lot of people with similar political beliefs to me. And we know that YouTube's demonetizing a lot of videos on the types of things that I talk about. But that's why it's important for you guys to share these things. Forget about Patreon for a second or PayPal or any of that. It's just important for you to share it because sometimes we're swimming up tide for several reasons here. We know that this live feed did not, I have 300,000 subscribers. This thing did not go out to all of you guys, obviously. So if you can just share this, if you want to take a second, maybe just tweet out the link or something, that would be great. Okay, what do we got?
The Real Dave from Patreon says, can we leave the Brexit kind of finish here? Since the polls are slanted and voter turnout is going to be a slide, since everyone assumes Hillary is going to win.
Yeah, I think that is actually a possibility. His question was, do you think there's a chance we'll have like a Brexit-style election here? Brexit meaning that everyone thought they were going to stay. The polls all implied that, and then they did decide to leave the EU. I think that is possible. But you have to keep in mind right now that forget who you like. The Trump base is still excited. They're angry and they're excited and they're pissed and they're engaged. The Hillary base and the machine, it's like it's working. Clearly, if you're to believe the polls, which I have no reason not to believe, then she's winning without question. But there's more excitement. You may not like what that excitement's for, but there's more excitement on the Trump side. So I do think it's possible. That's why I said I wish that we had one more debate, just like 3 or 4 days before the election. Not 20 days out, because so much can happen in the next 20 days. So I really do think that anything is possible at this point. I don't think it's a far gone conclusion. And I think that it will be just natural, just because of the way the media is, that they're going to want this thing to tighten up before it ends. A couple quick shout outs. Ginger upped on Patreon. Thank you. And Braden just jumped in on Patreon. So thank you. You guys are helping build our studio. Amira.
Who are the Four Horsemen of the alt-left and alt-right?
The Four Horsemen of the alt-right and the alt-left. So I guess that depends on what your definition of those things are. If you're assuming that I'm part of the alt-left, meaning that there's this new group of people that are not regressive left people, so then there's obviously, I'd like to include myself in there. But I'm in the online world, sir. I would include Sam Harris in that, obviously. I would include somebody like Sargon of Akkad. I would certainly include Majid Nawaz. I would include Ayaan Hirsi Ali. A few other people like that. In terms of the alt-right, again, these things. That's why this is tough with labels, and we try not. We have to sometimes use labels so people have a broader sense of what you're talking about. But I try not to get too hung up on labels. But in terms of the alt-right, I would say the leaders, the thought leaders in my world of that alt-right crew would probably be Milo and Cernovich and Scott Adams and maybe like a Lauren Southern or something. I don't know that they all count themselves as alt-right people, really. I think they're Trump supporters first. Although I can't speak for Lauren Southern exactly. But maybe a guy like Paul Joseph Watson or something. But anyway, any of these people that I've mentioned, I've had some of them on the show, and I would be happy to talk to all of them again. So there you go.
So this is combining a few questions from Patreon.
Okay.
Steve says, have the liberals gone out of control? And then someone else says, have they gone totally out of control, almost exaggerating these things, like abortion pride almost, like slut walk. It seems a little excessive. He's pro-choice, but how does the far right view us now? Yeah,
so basically a couple of people asked on Patreon the same sort of question of like, have the liberals just gone so crazy with all of this stuff? To the point where you could say that you're for abortion, now the slut walks, like all of this stuff. Yeah, they've gone crazy. And that's why I've said repeatedly, if the left won't deal with issues honestly, if the left won't talk about immigration honestly, but instead, the second you say something about borders, if you get yelled at as a racist or a bigot, well then what's going to happen? It's going to strengthen the right. It's going to strengthen somebody that'll come in with an easy answer. It's easy answer to just say, I'm going to build the wall. I don't think Trump is going to build the wall. I don't know that it's financially sensible. I don't know why Mexico would pay for it. I understand why he would try to change trade deals to make it happen. But this is why the left a lot of what's happened with the rise of Trump is a direct causation of the language control and the political correctness and the use of these phrases of Islamophobe and racist and bigot and all of that, which is why I've tried so hard to clean up the left. And I think I've done a decent enough job of it. And there's plenty of other people that are doing the same thing. But we need to be better and louder because we're completely being pushed out of the mainstream. I mean, I'll see articles written about me where they'll call me, Mike wrote a piece, mic.com, wrote a piece, and they call me a right-winger. And then, of course, and they wanted me to be in the original piece, by the way, and I sensed that the writer was just a bullshit artist, so I said, no, I'm going to pass, no thanks. Then in the article, he writes that I'm a right-winger, and then when I publicly shamed him, which got hundreds, if not thousands of favorites and retweets, of course he didn't respond, and their editor-in-chief didn't respond, and I know someone that works there, and I contacted them, and he said, there's nothing I can do. And it's like, you guys are all clickbait losers, and you've tried to, that's why the cries of racism and bigotry are so dangerous. The left has used them so overboard that they have become meaningless, and you're getting a counter reaction of people who now want to use Nazi memes to basically upset people. Yeah, it's just a big mess. What are we doing here? We're raising funds for our new home studio. We got to insulate this thing. We got to build a lighting grid. We got drywall, all kinds of stuff that we got to build out. I'm meeting with the contractors over the next couple of days. It's very exciting. We're going to start doubling shows, doing a lot more content. RubinReport.com/donate. We have 7 slots. Yesterday, we opened up 11 slots at the $100 level to join us on the mini group Hangouts, Google Hangouts video, where I talk to people all over the world in little groups of 10 or less. We have 7 slots left on there. You can join us for Patreon chat and mugs and T-shirts and all that good stuff. And we're doing a Patreon only, no matter how much you donate, just for tonight, whether it's $1 or $100 or whatever. Patron only chat on YouTube right after this. Amira.
Do employers have the right to fire workers for what they say on the internet?
Do employers have the right to fire workers for what they say on the internet? You know, I used to give a lot of the anonymous people shit. And then a lot of people would write back to me and say, I could lose my job if I said what I thought, blah, blah. I'm not talking about people that are in closed society. So I'm not talking about if you're in, a Muslim majority country or you're in Egypt or something. But if you're in the West, do employers have a right to fire you for something you said on the internet? Basically, I would say no. An employer, you enter a contract with an employer to do your job. And if you are doing your job, you should not be allowed to be fired for private thoughts. Now, if you publicly, let's say on your Facebook page, it says that you work for Microsoft and you're fighting with people online all the time and you're saying really racist shit or over the top shit, and it implies that you're a representative of Microsoft, that's a slippery slope. But generally, this idea that we could be fired for our thoughts or for political wrongthink really is what it's about. Because you wouldn't be, there would be a slew of political thoughts you'd be allowed to say because they'd be the popular things, no problem. So it would be all the wrong things. And you guys know that I say things that are considered wrong think these days. So I would be very against generally company firing people for personal beliefs. All right, a couple quick thank yous. John on Patreon, Benjamin, who donated $4.20, $4.20, a lot of 420s in the last
I think it's always Benjamin.
Is it always Benjamin?
It's always Benjamin.
We know what Benjamin's doing right now. Suresh, who donated on PayPal, and Alistair, who jumped up on Patreon. Thank you, guys.
This is funny. The real Dave from Patreon says, should I keep my Patreon, or should I up my Patreon, or keep my Sunday NFL ticket? Wife says I can't have both.
Ha! Dave on Patreon, he said, should I up my Patreon or keep my Sunday NFL ticket? My wife says I can't have both. The NFL rating's not too good this season, so they kind of need you, but at the same time, I'm trying to save the world over here. So it really, that's what it comes down to. You know what I mean? You can probably find a lot of those streams for free, but I know that you would not hijack our stream and find it for free.
You've never given anyone systematic concussions.
I've never given anyone systematic concussions. That's very true. And, that's, the choice is obvious. David's got something.
Josh on Patreon is speaking your mind to get you killed. For example, Charlie Hebdo. Why is speaking your mind and free speech more important than preserving your life and safety?
Ooh, I mean, that's deep. All right. So basically, he said if free speech could get you killed, like with the Charlie Hebdo guys, why is that more important than your safety? Because without free speech and without free thought and without free expression, what is the point of being alive? I mean, all that those cartoonists did was share a politically incorrect thought. And if you know anything about Charlie Hebdo, they were not actually mocking Mohammed per se. they were mocking the hypocrisy of religion, which, by the way, only 3% of their covers dealt with Islam. And they were an equal opportunity offender where they make fun of Christianity and Judaism and a bunch of other things all the time. We need those abilities. That the whole purpose, I think, of being a human, the one thing that separates us from the animals, is that we have a thinking consciousness where we can actually make judgment calls, make decisions, expand on what the human experience is. And the idea that you would live and not say something that you believe or not express something that you believe because it might offend somebody who then might kill you, well, you better fucking say it, because then otherwise you just will live your life as a hostage. So I refuse to live my life as a hostage. I know that upsets some people, but I just simply won't live that way. And by the way, if you say to somebody, all right, you can decide what cartoons I draw. You don't want me to draw that cartoon, I won't draw that cartoon. Do you think ultimately they're going to stop there? Or are they soon going to say, we don't want you to have your women wearing this, or we don't want gay bars in your area, or we don't want this or that? It's not going to stop with that. Tolerance is a two-way street. And don't be tolerant of intolerance, because that's just a slow death.
This is interesting. Peter from Seattle says he wants to see the gay community kind of wake up, and all the gays I think are Hillary bots. But then someone else said they live in Tacoma, and a lot of gay people are Trump supporters.
Wow, that's interesting. So the first part of the question was somebody saying that the gay community should wake up, that they're all Hillary bots. And then somebody responded in Tacoma and said that a lot of the gays there are Trump people. I think that's really interesting, because I live in West Hollywood here, it's basically like the gayest place on earth. I don't even think I'm gay enough for this place. We got rainbow crosswalks. Every restaurant and bar is gay. Gays all over the place. And sometimes I think when I'm here, if you go here, it's like every guy is jacked and buff. And they work out all day long. And it's like, I wonder what it would take. I was in Trader Joe's once, and there was a guy in there who clearly, he didn't look like he was a West Hollywood guy. And he was, I think he may have been on drugs or something. And he was kind of yelling at people and sort of like, you fag, like muttering under his breath and getting in people's faces. And all of these guys that worked out all day long, that have muscles on top of muscles, nobody did a thing. Nobody did a thing. They all kind of walked away and skirted away and whatever. Now, I didn't do anything either. Okay, so I'm including myself in this group. But I do think that Milo does make one point correctly when he talks about this stuff, that gays, I think, have to learn how to defend ourselves. And, when this guy shot up the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, it was really sad and pathetic to see what so many people on the left were doing, which was that their natural reaction was to somehow defend Islam or suddenly make it seem like Muslims were the victims of this, when one particular person did it in the name of a bad ideology. But gay people were thrown under the bus, because this is what the Oppression Olympics does. Gays are held below. For some reason, Islam is the highest. It's the least progressive thing out there. I'm not just saying that. Go to any place that is governed by Islam. It's extremely unprogressive. But that's at the highest of their Oppression Olympics. And gays are below that. And women are below that. So they have to throw everybody else under the bus for that. So I do think at some level gays have to start defending themselves properly, or at least having these conversations. And believe me, I get into it all the time with my gay friends. Anytime I say something remotely anti-Hillary, everyone gets their panties in a wad. But you got to keep saying what you think.
Some people in here didn't know you were gay, so.
Well, there you go. No big deal. I don't want any extra credit or any points for it, but I'm not even that good at it. But there you go.
And I guess not on that note, but this is a great dad joke for you.
Yeah.
Are you ever gonna get Emma a sibling, either canine or human?
Am I ever going to get Emma a sibling, either canine or human? Well, people say to David and I, are we going to have kids? And I say, I don't know, but we're going to keep trying.
Yeah,
there you go. And Emma, I don't think Emma's going to have a canine sibling. She's been such a great dog, and as I've told you guys, she's from New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, and she's had a couple puppies over the years, and she's just wonderful, and she's had a good life, and she's lived in New York. She's lived in New Orleans. She's lived in New York City. She now lives in LA. She's been to the Grand Canyon. She's been to the White House. She's been to the Washington Monument. I mean, she's really been around. I don't think I would want to upset her with anything else, but she does have. We got about 12 fish over there that she does get to see. All right, someone just stabbed one of the $100 slots on Patreon. That was Shane, who just upped on Patreon from 15 to 100. So I look forward to chatting with you in the Google Hangout. We got 6 slots left, and these are just mini video chats that I do with people all over the world. It's fun and it's cool, and I've gotten to know you guys, and you guys have not gotten to know you guys, but you could keep talking without me. That would be fine too. All right, where are we at?
Can you be overinformed?
Can you be overinformed? Sometimes I think I'm overinformed. So, well, more than overinformed, I think sometimes that I wish that I was able to put some of this stuff aside. Sometimes it's become so big, and especially in an election year like this, that it is hard to shut off sometimes. You know, I can lay in bed and wake up and immediately scroll Twitter and be slammed with so much information and people saying nice things to me or horrible things or whatever. And, you know, there's just an endless news cycle. So I don't know that you could be over-informed in terms of your breadth of knowledge, but I think you could be overstimulated to the point of stupidity. And I think that's one of the things where everybody pretends that they're experts in everything. And I never try to do that. I like learning from people. The best example that I can give, which I've said a couple times, is when we had that thaw in relations with Cuba, I guess that's probably about a year ago now, suddenly all of these pundits and comics and people and actors and everyone on Twitter was going on and on about Cuba. And I thought, I've never heard any of you say anything about Cuba ever. None of you, I've never expressed any opinion on Cuba, and you're all experts in our relations and the thawing of them and Castro and blah, blah. And it's like, stop pretending. You don't. Why does everyone have the need to pretend they know everything all the time? Want to thank a new Shane. We have back-to-back Shanes. Shane just jumped on Patreon. So welcome aboard, Shane. He's at the $50 level, which is going to get him a Rubin Report coffee mug. T-shirt. Also works with whiskey, by the way. And you get the T-shirt, and you get every reward before that, by the way. RubinReport.com/donate. We're only doing one more day of these live streams. This is our big push for the week. We're going to build out the studio and do all that stuff. Then we're going to do a lot more live stream stuff, but it's going to have nothing to do with fundraising. You know, we did this back in June when we built our studio. I don't intend on doing these twice a year. We'll maybe do it once a year after this, and not even necessarily that. But we got a nice little company going and an engine growing, and it's because of you guys. Man, I wish this fucking thing was going out to the feed, because it's unfortunate that there's only about 600 of you guys in here right now, because we know it's not going out to the feed. I mean, YouTube has basically told us that, and told us that people are being unsubscribed. I don't know what I'm supposed to think about that. And they're the game in town, you know, for us to be heard. So it's kind of shitty. But if you can keep sharing these videos, that's the most important thing that you can do.
What's your definition of presidential? Is it based on a behavior or an outcome, or both?
What's my definition of presidential? Is it based on a behavior or an outcome, or both? I would say basically both. I think that, you know, look, we're not voting in a king. We're not voting in someone that is going to rule over us. They're supposed to answer to us. They're supposed to sign things into laws. So I think it would be great if we understood that the power of the presidency is only a third of the government, and he's not supposed to make laws. He's supposed to sign laws. So I would say that the president should, more than anything else, and this may be Trump's biggest flaw, I would say. And by the way, Hillary's not great on this either, but I would say you have to have a vision for what you want the country to be, and that hopefully you can unite people, because we're all looking for some sort of leader to basically have a vision for what this country could be like, and now let the process be part of the process enough to help some laws get passed, or help change some things or whatever. But I don't think the president has to be, I don't think it's purely based on outcome, and I don't think it's purely based on ideology. I think it has to be someone that basically wants to do good for the country and has a decent moral center. My main issue with Trump is that I don't know exactly what his moral center is. And my main issue with Hillary is that I think she's made a lot of terrible decisions. But here we are with these two.
What's your favorite world leader? Who's your favorite world leader?
Who's my favorite world leader? Hold on. Yeah, it's a trap, but that's well done. Hold on, I'll do a Gary Johnson. I don't know any world leaders. What country is this? Where am I? What day is it? Where are my shoes? Who's my favorite world leader? I would say that the best world leader at the moment, well, I'll answer it this way. I think probably the greatest world leader ever was Winston Churchill, who, at least in modern times, right, let's say in the last 100 years, because what Winston Churchill did was realize what was happening with Nazism and laid down the law to not allow it to spread. And then the United States became part of that, and the Allies, and eventually we won World War II. You need leaders that have a certain set of principles. And I go to, just put Winston Churchill quotes in Google right now and just press images, and you can see some amazing quotes from this guy. And he actually did live by a lot of this stuff. It is not easy being a world leader. It really is not, and none of these people are perfect, and a lot of them are extremely flawed, and a lot of them have good intentions. So a simple way that Gary Johnson could have answered that question, by the way, if he just couldn't think of anything. But he literally couldn't think of any world leaders. That's the problem. Maybe it's the weed. But he could have said well, I don't know who's a great world leader, but he could have said, I know that in Germany they've had a really rough history and they've tried to atone for their history. And Angela Merkel has tried to do good and given them a basically good economy. And she's made some tough decisions with immigration that haven't worked out the way she wanted. But she's, helped them be part of he could have come up with something that would have had some semblance of decency, but he just dropped the ball, and that's very disappointing to me. Shitlord on Patreon. Welcome aboard, Shitlord. And Franz just upped on Patreon from 20 to 50, so he'll be getting a mug and a t-shirt and all the rewards before that. And it's youtube.com/Rubin Report. That's where you're at right now. And it's patreon.com/Rubin Report, RubinReport.com/donate. And you guys are helping build out our studio, Amira.
So didn't you already build the studio?
We did we built a studio that we were renting. So we rented space and built a set in our studio, but there were other productions going on there and we had to pay every time we did it. And as I mentioned earlier, it started becoming financially unfeasible for us to do more because the more we were paying for the studio, we were actually losing, the more content we made, we started losing money per episode. The more content we made, because by the way YouTube pays us out, it basically wasn't financially feasible all the time. Sometimes if we got huge numbers and a huge guest, it would be worth it. But if we had a more random person and the numbers were lower, and I don't want to do everything based on the most popular people, I want to bring you interesting people, it was becoming not financially sensible. And then we realized that really the last piece for freedom, we control our company. I control, we have employees and we have health insurance and a lawyer and accountant and all that stuff. And that the last piece to true freedom to decide if we're going to do distribution deals or how much content we want to create, or do we want to do more than just an interview show? Do we want to do a weekly news thing or other live streams or any of that?
Debates.
Or debates. A lot of people want me to moderate debates, which I'm totally down to do. We realized the only way to do that properly would be to fully own and control everything. And that's why we decided that the home studio was the way to go. So I took out 2 big loans, but I'm confident we can do this well. And you guys are helping us. And by the way, as I've said before, when you donate, we have a lot of young people, a lot of students that can't afford to donate. When you donate, you help keep this show free so that we don't have to put it behind a paywall or anything. And all that content still remains on YouTube and iTunes and all that. So you're helping these ideas. So I think hopefully you think it's an investment in yourself as well.
Thoughts on veganism?
Thoughts on veganism. I'm not a vegan. I love meat. I'm a big meat eater. If you want to see some of the things I'm eating, by the way, go to Instagram.com/David's Cookbook. David's an incredible chef, and I'm very spoiled that way in terms of the type of stuff that I'm eating all the time. I have no problem with vegans. When I lived in New York City at Fairway, I lived on the Upper West. They had their vegan area upstairs. A lot of green people. Everyone always looked a little green to me. Looked like they could use a piece of meat, frankly. But I know plenty of people that are vegans, and they're good people. And I try to get them to would you just have a little piece of chicken? Have a piece of fish. It's not going to kill you. But yeah, I'm fine. I'm totally fine with vegans. You do what works for you. Quick thanks to Malcolm, who just jumped up on Patreon, and to Dan, who joined on Patreon. Welcome aboard, people. Live shout outs to anyone that joins us on RubinReport.com/donate.
And this is going to be over soon, but we have another stream.
Oh, and this is going to be over soon, but we do have a Patreon only stream after that, where depending on how many people are awake, we have a lot of people in Europe that might be sleeping right now. There could be a dozen people in there. There could be 100 people in there. It's a lot easier for me to communicate directly to you guys. Where are we at?
As a gay man, do you ever feel disenfranchised by the gay community because you have different views?
That's a good one. So as a gay man, do I ever feel disenfranchised by the gay community because I have different views? Yes, hugely. I think I've always sort of felt this. I had a show on SiriusXM, which was on the OutQ channel, which was the LGBT channel. I always wanted to do politics, but they just threw me on the gay channel because they were like, you're gay, you're going on the gay channel. Wasn't really where I wanted to be. I wanted to be on the nonpartisan political channel, which existed at the time. I'm not sure that it still exists. But anyway, yeah, I've never really been into groupthink, so I've always sort of thought as the outsider. I don't know if you guys saw this. I tweeted out a bunch this week, but Peter Thiel, who was one of the founders of PayPal, an early investor in Facebook, the guy's worth billions of dollars, who runs Thiel Capital and spoke at the Republican convention. I don't know that he was even a huge Trump supporter, but he's a conservative, so to speak, but openly gay. There was an article in The Advocate this past week. You can find it. It's a fucking horrible article about how he's not gay. He's not really gay. Yeah, he has sex with dudes, but he's not really gay because he doesn't identify with the gay struggle and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, what bullshit? What regressive bullshit? He's gay because it takes one thing to be gay, and I'm pretty sure he does it. So he's gay. And for you to say he's not gay because he has different, the advocate, which is supposed to be an advocate for gay people and gay issues. The Advocate's completely irrelevant, by the way. I don't know any gay person that reads it. But the point is that what they tried to say is that the mainstream gay group think now says that if you think differently politically, you're not even gay. I mean, it's actually disgusting. So I went on a very vociferous defense on him on Twitter. And I would love to see the gay community loves diversity, right? We love diversity. We love, I don't really care for drag queens, but we love, they love, you go to a gay pride parade, you got every single color person, boa, feathered, blah, blah, blah. Love diversity. Diversity of thought, not so much. I think the gay community could get a lot better with that.
Do you have any outside investors in the production company, or is it all fan funds?
Do we have any outside investors in the company? We don't have any straight up outside investors, meaning anyone that owns a piece of the company. We've had a couple people that have given a little bit more than, say, the average person. You can look on the donate page. You can give $1,000 to get this, or $2,000 to get that, or $5,000 to do that. We've had a couple versions of that, but I 100% own the company, and I think that's the best way to do it. We've had offers. I've had several offers for people to buy chunks of the company, and I was even in this process of having to take these loans to do the home studio thing. I've been thinking about selling a certain piece of it. I'm really trying not to do that yet, but I've had a couple offers for that. But that's why we really want to hit this 30,000 thing, because then I know our finances are fully good for the near term or even the long term, and we can build out accordingly and hire some people and start doing more content and all that good stuff.
What number you're trying to hit? 15 minutes?
All right, we got 15 minutes left on this baby. We're at 25,595 on Patreon. We have 6 slots left at $100 to join us on our group Google Hangout monthly. And what can I do for the good people that would excite them? That they would say, I will.
Probably
jump in. It's all about taking a shot for you people. I do have a lot of Patron over there. Maybe I'll do it depending. Someone make an offer that I think there's a little bit left. But if someone wants to make me an offer I can't refuse, maybe I'll do a shot or two. But I'm trying not to drink on the weekdays. But for the purposes of this, all right, maybe I'll do it. So make me an offer I can't refuse. I'll be all right.
What do you think of Putin's moves in the last decade?
What do I think of Putin's moves in the last decade? I mean, look. I've said this a couple of times the last few days. I think it's obvious that there's something going on with Russia right now. Mitt Romney was mocked by everyone, including me, 4 years ago when he said that Russia is our biggest political foe. And right now, what's happening? I mean, we see Russia's expanding, and the U.S. is taking a step back in the world. In and of itself, that doesn't necessarily mean anything's bad. But Russia seems to have completely reverse goals in Syria than we have, although it's unclear to me what exactly our goals are. Russia took Crimea, which was against the NATO charter, that if they went into a NATO country, NATO was supposed to protect them, and NATO didn't. So we had our red line in Syria and didn't do anything. I think Putin sees an America in retreat and thinks he can just do whatever he wants. Now, I don't know what he wants. Does he want to form Greater Russia again, or somehow bring back the Soviet Union? I'm not totally sure. But I think we got to tone down some of the rhetoric. The real issue with Russia right now is that if they're somehow in cahoots with WikiLeaks, and let's say Hillary gets in, we don't know what they have on Hillary. So let's say Hillary's the president, and they've held back a lot of blackmailing shit, and now she's the president. We could end up in some really awful, Cold War or hot war situation because of information that they have. So there's several dangers here that, you don't want to go down the conspiracy route, but you have to at least think of and be very clear. There are people in DC and think tanks thinking of this stuff right now.
How do we shake off this political apathy that the world is experiencing?
How do we shake off the political apathy? I mean, I think the most important thing to shake off the political apathy is to be engaged. The reason we got here is because, you know, the two parties just offered us so little of nothing that this is the best two people that they gave us. People are engaged right now. As Scott Adams said on the show, you know, I said, what do you think of this just disaster? He's like, this is chaos. But out of this chaos is going to come some goodness. I've really come around on that idea. I really do think that no matter who wins, look, if Hillary wins, the Trump people are going to be engaged. They'll be fighting the system and engaged. You may not like what they stand for, but they'll be engaged. If Trump wins, the establishment will suddenly be on the outs, and they're going to have to figure out how do we get popular again. So I hope that people, if nothing else, will stay engaged. And more than anything else, I hope that what we really get out of this is a viable third party. We get a group of people that are basically liberals or classic liberals and mainstream conservatives and some libertarians and all of those people who go, you know what, fuck the fringes. We're all here and we don't all have to believe the same thing. And I don't have to think exactly what you think about abortion. You don't have to think exactly what I think about taxes. But we do have to realize that we're here in the same country and we want to live under the same rules, and let's get there together. I think that could form after this. But we got a lot of work to do.
Why don't you run what we're doing?
All right, what are we doing? RubinReport.com/donate. You guys are helping us build our home studio. We got to put in a lighting grid and drywall and soundproofing and air conditioning. We got a ton of work to do over the next couple weeks, but we're doubling our episodes to 2 a week next week just to show you how hard we're working.
How does next week?
Oh, in perpetuity. We're doubling our episodes starting next week for a while. We're going to do it as long as we can. If we hit that 30,000 goal, then we know we're good to go on that. But you're helping us build our studio. We're going to do a live Patreon chat right after this. All you have to do is donate live stream right here on YouTube, but it'll be for patrons only. But you only have to donate $1 to get that, or whatever works for you. And we got a couple slots left at the $100 level that a few people have just taken over. And for $100, you join us on our monthly Google Hangouts, and we talk to small groups, to people all over the world. We quick thanks to Benjamin on PayPal, Jake on Patreon, and Gene on Patreon. Thank you guys. Gene or Jean on Patreon. Thank you.
All right. Why don't you give a call to have some rapid fire questions?
All right, let's do rapid fire questions. Just fire off questions that I can answer quickly. Give me like 20 questions in a row. Amira is going to line them up, and I will be prepared for rapid fire answers as quickly as I can. By the way, Emma is having dinner as we speak. Okay.
While we're waiting on that, why don't you talk about Obama giving the internet away?
While we're waiting on that, something light. Obama giving the internet away. So this was a massively underreported story. But basically, the United States has controlled the internet, for better or worse, since, you know, for these last 20 years that the internet's been relevant to us. A couple months ago, or where is it? About a month ago at this point, I guess, they gave the internet up to the United Nations, which now means that countries that don't respect human rights the way we do, that don't respect free speech the way we do, now have more of a say over the control of the internet. So China and Saudi Arabia and plenty of other countries. I view this as a problem. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And yeah, the U.S. shouldn't have a monopoly over everything, but the internet has been working pretty great. It has caused revolutions. Look what happened in Egypt. It has changed the world, and it's been working, and it's been accessible and free. And I fear that we've now given, we don't know what the ramifications of this are yet, but it's a big problem. Why, if it's working, it's working. Let's not have this thing be censored. This is the great equalizer. Watch my interview that I did on YouTube Week with Joe in Egypt, where he talks about, this is a 30-year-old guy in Egypt who's a free thinker in Egypt who didn't mind going on video, even though I said to him, you don't have to show your face if you don't want. And he said that his awakening was the night, because he saw on the internet, he saw the night that Sam Harris was on Real Time with Bill Maher, and that was his own political awakening. How cool is that? I'm 8,000 miles away, or whatever it is here in California, maybe more than that, 8,000 miles. And I had my awakening at basically the same time. That's how magical, as he described it, the internet is. And we got to make sure this thing stays free for everybody. All right, we got some rapid fires. Are we ready on rapid fire? All right.
What are you doing for Thanksgiving?
What am I doing for Thanksgiving? I'm going to be hosting Thanksgiving. David's going to be making a turkey for a lot of people on his side of the family, possibly some Rubins.
Pie or cake?
Pie or cake? More of a, I was going to say more of a cake guy, but I've been enjoying some pies lately. I like an apple pie, like a rhubarb pie.
Why is your hair amazing?
Why is my hair amazing? It's got good fluff today. Some days it's a little stiff on camera. Some days it's got nice wave. We're in a wave day today. It's working.
Favorite Republican primary candidate?
Favorite Republican primary candidate, probably Rand Paul, because he by far was the most different and at least had some libertarian principles. I think there were a lot of problems with him, and he dropped the ball, and he just wasn't a particularly good candidate. But I think in terms of a guy that I could sit down and have an interesting political conversation with, I think it would be Rand Paul.
Favorite weed strain?
Favorite weed strain? I like, I've got the Granddaddy Purple right now, which is, I like indica heavy. I don't need sativa to think anymore. If I'm smoking pot, it's to not think. So I like the body high, not the mental high. So Granddaddy Purple is the one I've been into lately.
Why is your hair amazing?
You just asked me that, and it's still fluffy and wavy. Okay. I think you've been smoking too much weed.
I figured you want the mac and cheese question.
Oh, yeah. Well, sorry. Mac and cheese or mashed potatoes. You only get one flavor.
That's impossible. Mac and cheese or mashed potatoes. I love both. That's so hard. I mean, mac and cheese. A good mac and cheese. Ain't nothing like it. Speaking of mac and cheese. Maybe a little mac and cheese. Instagram.com/David's Cookbook if you want to see some of the things.
How does it feel when people are surprised to hear you're gay?
You know, how does it feel when people hear I'm gay or they're surprised? You know, I don't want any awards for who I am. It's just a small piece of who I am, and I never wanted extra credit or any pity or anything like that. I wanted equal rights, which now we have equal rights. And I want to be treated on my individual thoughts, just like anybody else. So, you know, not every gay guy is what you're seeing on television. There are actual gay people out there that you may not know are gay, and they are. Quick thanks to Alexander on Patreon.
What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? I'm not a great sleeper in general. I wish I was a better sleeper. Sometimes I do find it's hard to just shut this stuff off. You know, I've been trying to shut down online a little bit earlier. Because, you know, it just kind of gets in your head and just rattles around in there, and you can be looking at your phone when instead of having a private thought or an intimate moment or whatever. I think about the broad stuff a lot. I think about I don't think about like, you know, like the day-to-day minutia really of my life doesn't really worry me. I do think about broad trends about world war and AI and all kinds of other stuff that I probably shouldn't be wasting my brain cells on.
Are you left or right-handed?
I'm left-handed. All the brilliant, creative people are lefties.
Trump or Bill, who's more of a creep?
Trump or Bill, who's more of a creep? I mean, Trump obviously comes off as more of a creep, but we don't know that Trump has done anything. He says he's done some stuff, you know, in his locker room talk. He's grabbed pussies. Bill used his power to do stuff that we know for a fact. Who's creepier, everything being equal? I think it's still Trump, but you know, words and actions are not necessarily the same thing. All right, we're going to wrap up soon, but it is patreon.com/Rubin Report or RubinReport.com/donate if you want to jump in there and help produce the Rubin Report. So real quick to Tanner, and the exclusive live stream just for patrons only is coming up. And you'll get to meet Amira and David. We're going to have them in there. You guys can ask them about me. Maybe I'll stop talking for a minute, which would be nice. And Amir and David will jump on.
That's for all patrons.
And that's for all patrons. So whether you're $1 or a $2.50 level or $500 or whatever it is. And all right, Amira.
Oh, I thought we were done.
Would you think Sam Harris would ever debate Milo?
Do I think Sam Harris would debate Milo? Sam's certainly not afraid of debating. I'm actually going to see Sam. He's going to be in LA for 2 nights with Richard Dawkins next week, which is going to be awesome. And I'm going to a little private thing after, which will be really, really cool. I was trying to get Dawkins on the show, but his schedule is just packed. And I think he's taking it a little easier these days. But hopefully I can make that happen. But I don't, you know Sam, he has no fear in taking out an unpopular position. And I think he probably would under the right circumstances.
There's a lot of questions about wieners.
A lot of questions about wieners. We're going to put those aside.
Yeah. What's Aleppo?
What's Aleppo? What's Mosul?
And Cher or Gaga?
Cher or Gaga?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm old school. Cher, but I would gladly take Tina Turner instead of Cher.
This is rapid fire, but assuming Hillary is elected, do you think that WikiLeaks has enough dirt for her to be impeached?
If Hillary's elected, do you think WikiLeaks has enough for her to be impeached? I mean, that's sort of what I was alluding to before. We don't know what they have, which even if you're 100% for WikiLeaks, that does create a bit of a problem because it's a chance that they wait until she's already elected to really unleash this stuff. And then if at that point she's the president and has the power to go to war, Emma's freaking out. That could be a problem. So, you know, I don't like going down these conspiracy theories. Emma, what's up? What's happening? You know, I don't like going down these conspiracy theory things, but you have to be leery. They have a political agenda for sure. They seem to have a lot of stuff on her. And that is just the reality of the situation.
And last question is, what is your call to action for the rest of us before you go? Number one priority for people in your mind.
What is my call to action? Number one priority for you guys, forgetting money for a second completely. Really, the most important thing you can do is say what you think. Don't be afraid to say what you think in real life, to sit down at the dinner table with your spouse or your wife or your friends or your coworkers and tell them what you think. The cries of racism and bigotry have silenced people to the point that it is causing a lot of the support for Trump. Now, you may like Trump, and that's totally fine with me. You may like all of that stuff, but we have to have honest conversation. I don't even want to make this about Trump. Wherever you fall politically, don't be afraid to say what you think. That is the most important thing you can do. Share videos, doesn't have to be my videos, but share videos of things that'll get people thinking. Tell your friends what you think. And if you lose friends because they tell you what you think about politics, then you'll find better friends. I've lost some friends, and guess what? I found better ones in the last year. So that's what I would say is the most important thing that anyone can do, is share what you think. We have the great luxury, if you live in the West and you're watching this, we have freedom for now, but freedom is not free, and we won't always have it if we don't defend it. So there you go. All right. My last two thank yous go to Tanner, who donated on Patreon. Thank you, Tanner. Oh, we got a couple more. Adam, who donated on Patreon, and Stephen, who donated on Patreon, and Jonathan, who just donated on Patreon. So thank you guys all. Everybody who is a member on Patreon, we're going to post the link to the private chat right now, so you can still jump in on that if you want. All right, thank you guys, and we'll do one more of these tomorrow night, and we're building out some really cool stuff, and we won't let you down. All right, ciao.